Wilbur. You don't need your butthole on the camera. 1 second. Wilbur, are you done?
The place has been
There we
enough of
go.
being ignored.
There we go.
My experience with anxiety has, for the longest part of my life, been focused around OCD. My parents always said growing up that I was an anxious child. And then it wasn't until 2009 there was a lot of news about swine flu. I was in Christchurch with my dad. We were at like a museum. And he told me to like sanitize my hands and my things after I touched everything so I wouldn't get sick, because apparently this thing is maybe going to be spreading around. It just sort of like planted a little seed that I didn't notice that it was there until over the course of the next year, it grew into something that became quite a problem. Mum took me to the doctor and they referred me to CAMHS and they diagnosed me with OCD. It wasn't that I was scared I was going to get sick, which was the really strange thing about it. It was that I just couldn't handle the thought of being contaminated by someone else's saliva. I couldn't handle the feeling that someone else's saliva was on me. Gradually finding things harder and harder, finding going to school harder because, there was people chewing gum and like putting it under the desk and people, like sucking their pens and teachers licking their fingers and touching paper to like hand it out in class. It became that I was needing to go and wash my hands to, get rid of the contamination, all the time. Someone in my class coughed and someone made a joke about them seeing their cough go all over me. And I had to go home from school because I was unable to live with the feeling of that kind of contamination. Kids were understandably not very nice about it. I tried to hide it as best I could because it's very embarrassing. And I was always, scared that they would find out more about what bothers me and, use it to make fun of me, I guess. I don't think anyone that I really dealt with, apart from like psychologists, fully understood what it was actually like. But the school counselors I saw at school all the time were really, really awesome. Along the course of me finishing school, my main fear of saliva sort of left and it turned into the fear of contamination by urine and faeces. It got continually worse as I grew up and became an adult. When it's like an OCD trigger, it feels very much like you quickly switch into alert mode, and I get very, very stressed very quickly about what I'm going to do to sort it. It feels like your brain is like firing up. You feel your heart going faster, you're breathing faster. It's like I can't like take the amount of thoughts and feelings that are suddenly rushing in, like a dam bursting, basically. It's whoosh. All of this noise suddenly out of nowhere.
You can't function.
I just stop functioning properly. With general anxiety for me, it's a bit different. I can feel when I'm starting to get a bit tense and finding things that's a little bit too much, and I can feel that, I'm stiffening up a bit and, everything's sort of feeling a bit cloudy. And then it's really important that I remove myself from what I'm doing and just try and de-stress a bit. When an OCD trigger happens, 9 times out of 10, I didn't see it coming. And it's just, there was no way to anticipate or foresee that this was going to happen. And it just, boom, basically. I know what my triggers are. I know it's to do with contamination about feces and urine. My obsession is, making sure I'm not contaminated by it. And my compulsion is, ensuring that it doesn't happen or cleaning myself when it does happen. One of the biggest misconceptions about OCD is just the nature of OCD. Many people don't even realize it's a natural condition. A lot of people think it's a way to describe someone. You hear a lot of people making jokes about OCD or using it lightly, when, something's not tidy or something's out of place. People go, oh, this is triggering my OCD. I need to put this back into place. Oh, that was so OCD of me. That's not what makes OCD. OCD is having intrusive thoughts into your head that you cannot get rid of unless you perform a compulsion. And those compulsions, which is another misconception, is people believe that compulsions should just be things like me where I clean. Like, yes, that is a compulsion, but that's not the only compulsion. A lot of people don't understand that compulsions can be completely internal. Internal reassurance, for example, circling things in your mind, trying to think back to what you've done to make sure you didn't do something wrong, for example, is a compulsion. Even the act of avoidance, so me deciding I don't want to go to the beach today because I don't want to get contaminated, that's a compulsion as well. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. There are so many forms of OCD out there that a lot of people will never have heard of, like religious OCD, moral OCD, harm OCD, all of these things that are just going on in your head where you may not see any normal compulsions. And that's why it's so important that we speak about it. The best support is the consistent and ongoing support from Kayla, from my family. It's the little stuff they do every day, to help me, be as comfortable as possible and try to live my best life. Helping me in ways I don't even realize. Don't you worry about it. I'm extremely, lucky to have the support around me that I do. I think about people out there who have the same thoughts as me, have the same, internal terror going on, and they don't have anyone. It's abundantly clear that there's just not enough services for everyone. There are people that rightfully so are being prioritized, but there needs to be more for other people who still have severe mental health issues. They give you, crisis numbers and that sort of thing in case things get really bad, but there's no actual relief from your symptoms because you're not being treated, you're just waiting. In terms of treatment, it's just so important that you trust the people providing your treatment because it really is beneficial. It really is what is going to help. Therapy for anxiety, especially OCD, is essentially confronting your fears. In the moment, you can feel like, I don't want to do this because it's so unsettling, it's so uncomfortable. And on top of that, you just feel so alone because, no one's ever talked about this with you before. You don't know if other people even have this, what's going on. So many times I felt angry at people for, doing things that have upset me and doing things that make me feel uncomfortable. But how can I expect people to be mindful of me if they don't know? So there's no shame in talking about what you're going through. It doesn't make you any weaker of a person to speak up about what support you need and to, share your story and help other people along their path as well.